Welcome to On The Prowl, the perspective that matters, episode 22. I'm your host, Bill. I want to thank you guys for bearing with me last week. I had some scheduling issues and was not able to get to a podcast, but I am this week, and I hope you guys will enjoy it. I did want to start out, of course, with the blockbuster trade news that came out the other day. Full three-team trade details. Canes get Ratnan, Hall, Avs get Nikas and Drury, and then there were draft picks in there as well. Just my 2 cents worth on it is I think Carolina got an absolute steal on this. I think they made out well. The Avs did good, but I really think the Canes have really bolstered their chances. We'll see how that goes. I'm just kind of putting that out there and putting that into perspective. Another piece of news, I have a new license plate. Take a look at it. Florida Panthers 16C. So hope you guys enjoy that. I certainly am. I was thrilled to get it and very excited about it and represent my favorite player from my favorite team. So what I thought I'd like to do today would be to kind of go over some things. I know, a lot of people have just been very concerned about how the Panthers have been doing lately. And I wanted to address that from 3 types of standpoints here. And the standpoints I wanted to look at it all depends on your perspective. And I want to look at it from a coach's perspective and a coach's standpoint, from a podcaster like myself standpoint, and also from a fan standpoint. Now, first of all, I want to go ahead and look at it. Paul had this quote up here, and I really like this, and I wanted to get this out here for everybody. There's been a couple of periods I haven't liked since Christmas, and that's about it. Maurice said, we played hard, battled hard, but we're going to have a whole bunch of these, but we're going to have a whole bunch of these the rest of the year. So we've got to get used to it, scratch and claw for points. Now, one of the other things that I saw, and I believe it was George Richardson with Florida Hockey Now, had a post game with Paul. And one of the things that Paul talked about during that post game was that this season is not like last season. And I know there are many podcasters out there. There are a lot of fans out there that are trying to compare apples to apples last season to this season. And you just really kind of can't do it. Although there are some similarities in terms of some of the statistics and where they stand statistically speaking, they're a completely different team than last year. Okay. And it's very obvious in the way they are playing this year and the way they were playing last year. I mean, a lot of people are saying, we should have signed Montour. Well, Montour got stupid money. I mean, good for him. I'm glad he got his payday, but there's no way that the Panthers could have afforded him. None whatsoever. That wasn't going to happen. And, and also OEL, we should have kept him as well. And, you just hear a lot of that discussion and then our backup goalie as well, too. But I think we're in a very good position here. And one of the things I wanted to remind everybody is this, all right? Paul has been doing this for 27 years. This isn't something that he has been doing for 2 or 3 or 4 years. He's coming at it from a coach's perspective. He is fine with where things are right now. So I think that's kind of how I think we should look at it. If Paul's fine with it, we should be fine with it. If he's worried, we should be worried at this point in time. So all in all, I'm not very concerned. But I'm going to get to it from a podcaster's perspective here. And how I'm looking at it is there's a fine line between playing well and peaking at the right time, like late March, early April. And that's true. There's really a fine line. When does a coach say, like Paul, push that button to say, okay, we're going to light the afterburners under you guys, and you guys need to start, playing playoff caliber hockey. Now, there's a lot of term, there's something to be said what that actually means. But I think my big thing is in the second quote that I put here. In my book, you still need to play well and be consistent. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to win every game. Obviously, you're not. And I'll go for an example, looking at the game against the Kings. I thought the first 2 periods, I thought they played well. The third period, they did not play well. But, overall on this road trip, they're, as of the time of this broadcast, they're going to be playing the Vegas Golden Knights tonight at 8:00. It's the time of they're 2-1 on this trip. Of course, they beat 2 of the if you want to call them doormats of the league, Anaheim and San Jose. And San Jose, they absolutely crushed them. But, the, what I'm looking for me, from my perspective, is some consistency. And I think that's something that really needs to be, they really need to have some consistency with their play. And not only, offensively, defensively, and goaltending wise. Now, for the most part, they've been getting that lately. Okay. And I say that in quotes, for the most part. There's some times that the wheels will fall off, and they just completely, they forget how to forecheck. They take all these perimeter shots that are going to be easy saves for the opposing goalie, and they're just not playing aggressively. And then, like last night against San Jose, I mean, they gave up a couple of quick goals. I mean, they scored first, but then they gave up a couple of quick goals. But then after that, it was lights out. They got aggressive on the forecheck. San Jose barely had any time in our zone. They were down there all the time. They chased the first goalie last night. And they had a very balanced attack. I mean, that was from a not only from a podcaster's perspective, from a fan's perspective, that was a fantastic game last night. You had 7 different players scoring goals. You had 12 different players on the score sheet last night, and you had all 4 lines contributing to the outcome of the game, which was absolutely fantastic. That's something you want to see. That's something that if you start seeing things like that on a consistent basis, sometimes you may not get the W, but if you're playing consistent like that and playing well like that, I think that bodes well for the Panthers for this season coming into the playoffs. And then the last one here, Zito may make a deal, but it has to be at the right time. Now, I've been seeing, some of my fellow podcasters, conjecturing possible trade scenarios, who with, what do the Panthers need, that kind of thing. All right, let me say a couple of things here. One, this has to be at the right time, okay? And I can't emphasize that enough, because if you try to pull the trigger when teams aren't really selling right now, you're not going to get something. Now, I know we talked about the intro of the blockbuster trade, and there was some reasoning and some logic behind that, because it looked like Rantanen was not going to get, Avs weren't going to come to terms with him. So, they did something and it worked. Okay. Now, there may be something out there like that. Zito may be working on that. If he is, absolutely fine. But I think at this point in time, if you're going to try to pull the trigger, they're going to be asking a lot more. You're going to be getting, I would think, a marginal improvement, and you might be losing a key piece that you can't replace. So Zito has a balancing act to do here. He has to be very careful with how he approaches something like this. For me, at this point, I think you still want to wait. And I think you want to wait until teams are selling. Right now, a lot of teams aren't selling. All right. We're just approaching the end of January. We still got a whole month before the trade deadline in February. Plus, we have the Four Nations face-off coming up in February as well, too. So it gives some time for Zito to take a look at things, to see how they are. They're coming off this road trip, this 4-game West Coast road trip. And as Paul Maurice said, and I think it was in one of the most recent post-game interviews, we have quite a few. We still have I think we have, if I'm not mistaken, 10 more back-to-backs this year. So that really tests the team. And I think that's one of the things that he likes, is seeing how consistent they play in these back-to-back situations. And for the most part, they've done pretty good on them. Now, a couple times they'll come out flat, and, that's to be expected, but I think they are a well-conditioned team. And I think that's one thing a lot of people know about the Panthers, is they have a great strength and training and conditioning staff with them, and they really work with them. And I know a lot of the players. I know Bobrovsky, I know Sasha Barkov, a lot, and Kachuk, they're all fastidious about keeping in shape and keeping game-wise. So, all in all, as far as a trade is concerned, I think Zito is going to wait. I think he's going to wait closer to the deadline to see what other teams are different. I mean, desperate. You look at a team right now, for example, the NHL surprise of the year, which it wasn't a surprise to me, is the Columbus Blue Jackets, who I had lived in Columbus for 30 years. I had season tickets up there. I am so thrilled. I knew when they got Dean Evanson as their head coach, I knew that team would take off. Okay, he reminds me a lot of Paul. He's very structured. He's got them believing in themselves. And I think that's fantastic, and, they're right now, they're looking like they're in a wild card spot, but who knows? In Montreal, they're another surprise as well, too. Who would have thought they would position themselves to be in a wild card spot? So, time is going to tell, where these teams are. You may see Montreal selling, you may see the Blue Jackets selling when it gets closer to that March trade deadline. So, and I think Zito's a very patient man, and if we need to make a trade, and a lot of people think that we do, and a lot of people think, we need an offensive minded defenseman. I'm just throwing that out there, that my 2 cents worth. Zito's going to he's going to make the best deal out there. I mean, he's had some legendary great deals. Okay. I mean, there's just no question about it. He's really pulled some magic. Well, Jesper Boquist, let's put that in perspective. Okay. He's had the most goals he's ever scored in the NHL this year. I think that was just a tremendous pickup by Zito. He really did his homework there, and he's playing like a house of fire. I mean, he's just absolutely fantastic. Panthers have a lot of great players, and I'll mention another one right now before we move on to the fans' perspective is Mackie Samoskevich. Mackie is everywhere, and I think some of the post-game interviews I've been seeing recently, he's really trying to pattern himself a lot. And Bennett's been a great mentor to him, and I think that's been absolutely fantastic. So hope that continues. I wish he would have gotten on the score sheet last night, but all in all, he's doing extremely well. So okay, now we're going to take a look at things right here. We're going to kind of move on, look at it from a fan's perspective. They're not playing well. No one is scoring. Our defense is MIA. They're not playing like last year. What's wrong with Bob? And Zito needs to make a deal. All right. Understand something. Okay. When you watch a lot of games, as I've watched pretty much, I think with the exception of one game this year, I've watched them all this year. You can get a little oversaturated as a fan, and coming at it from a fan's perspective, I get it and I understand it. And one of the suggestions that I have for fans out there, diehard fans, and if you're getting real frustrated with their way they're playing, force yourself, and trust me, it's hard. Force yourself to take a game or two off. It'll really help your perspective on things. I know a lot of people who have done that just to kind of get a mental reset, and it really works well. So that's something I would suggest for you guys. And some of these issues right here they're true. Okay, there are some games they're not playing well. There are some games, it's like no one is scoring until recently. Tkachuk scored last night. Bennett hadn't scored for a while. He's gotten a couple lately, which is good. Fantastic. And they're not playing like last year. Well, that's like I said earlier a few minutes ago, and Maurice addressed it as well. This is a different team from last year. We don't have OEL. We don't have Montour. It's a different team. Okay. It's a completely different team. So, we can't really compare last season to this season. And I know a lot of people said, what's wrong with Bobrovsky? I mean, that almost always comes up in any type of conversation. He can have off nights here, everybody. Okay. He's not perfect. He's a human being. He makes mistakes. But when he's dialed in, he's very dialed in. And I think, again, this comes to knowing when to push that, wanting to peak button that Paul Maurice is obviously is going to try to do, I think, probably at the end of March, beginning of April, when the playoffs roll around, because playoff Bobrovsky is different from regular season Bobrovsky. And when you see him in playoff mode, he's making saves that are highlight reel saves all the time during these games. So you want to see that at the right time. He's going to make some mistakes during the regular season. Playoffs, he still might, but for the most part, when he's dialed in the playoffs, he's going to be seeing things really well. All right. And on a side note as well, Spencer Knight is really rising up right now. The more he plays, the better he is. And I think, one of the things that I heard from him in a post game, he's letting things come to him. He's not overthinking plays. And I think that's where he's really doing well. He's letting, he's number one, he's letting his equipment, work for him. The sticks and his pads and, his blocker, and he's doing a great job. And, he's not overthinking a lot of these plays, and kudos to him. And he's got a great perspective on things. And I really like that. He's only 24 years old. I think the future is very bright for him. I'm excited for the possibilities with him. Early on in the season, people are like, oh, Knights in goal. But now it's like, oh, okay, yeah. And like more than likely tonight against Vegas, he'll probably be in the net. And it's going to be a real test for him because, you're going to get up against Stone and Eichel and company, and it's not going to be easy. But we'll see how he does tonight. So, that's another thing as well, too. And then, one of the things, our defense is MIA, and a lot of people are talking about Aaron Ekblad. Well, thankfully, Aaron Ekblad came back last night and he scored a goal. And it was great to see him from an upper body injury. He did play very well last night. He got a lot of minutes in. He was looking very, very sharp last night. And kudos to him. I'm glad he's back. You miss him. Yeah, you miss him for his leadership. And yes, he has changed his game. He's not as offensive minded as he used to be. He's more defensive minded, but that still doesn't mean he doesn't come in and pinch on a play. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact, of course, obviously because of his age and injuries, he's lost some of that foot speed. So you kind of have to kind of balance things out as far as that's concerned. So, but from a fan's perspective, it can be really frustrating. So, and I get it, and I understand that. When if I can put my fan hat on here, like I've said here, you get it and you understand. Paul put it really well, and he said this at the beginning of the season. And it's one of my favorite things that he said is the season is a marathon and not a sprint. Meaning, you're in it for the long run. You're going to have games you're not going to play well. You're going to have games you are going to play well. You're going to have games that you're going to play well and still lose. And I think that's one of the things I think Paul really likes, those kind of games when you play well and still lose. He gets a lot of positives out of this, and he passes that on to them. And then the other thing that I didn't put on here is, the culture of the locker room. And they have probably one of the best locker rooms in the NHL from all accounts. After talking to, several of the beat reporters here, fantastic ones that we have that cover the Panthers, that's one of the things they said. There's a lot of camaraderie in that locker room. It's a great place. And, there are a lot of mentors in there. And a lot of people are very selfless in there and are wanting the best for the team. And they're willing to help a lot of the new guys out. For example, as I mentioned earlier, Bennett helping out Mackie Samoskevich. And I'm really high on Mackie. I really like him a lot. I think he has a very bright future ahead for the Panthers. So, all in all, my conclusion is this: trust in Maurice. Okay. He's been an NHL head coach for 27 years. And I put this up earlier, a couple of weeks ago. If he's not worried, I'm not worried. And you know what? He's not worried. Okay. He said that with that first quote that I put up there. He said, he's only really seen one or two bad periods since Christmas. And that also, he said, be prepared. And this is something else I think that fans need to be aware of, is to be prepared that, we're going to have a lot of these tight 2-1, 3-2 kind of games 4-3 kind of games coming up. Okay. They're going to be what I would call fairly low scoring, tight defensive contests that they need to be prepared for. And I think that's what Paul is trying to tell everybody, with this. All right. These are coming. We're going to be getting these. And I think this is good preparation for the playoffs. So all in all, feel very good about where we're at. I would love to see them win in Vegas tonight and take 3 out of the 4 on this road trip. I think it's fantastic. They got a nice little homestand coming up, which is good. Four Nations is coming up in February, a little bit of a break, which is good for them. Obviously, they played a lot of hockey the past couple of years. So, all in all, I feel very good about where the Panthers are at. I'm trusting in Paul Maurice. He's got them, I think, right where they need to be. And if Zito can pull off a deal, he's going to pull off a deal. I really feel that. I trust me. And I know he's going to do it for the betterment of the team. So that's where things are right now. So, we got some to look forward to. February's coming up. The Four Nations are coming up. Got a lot to look forward to. As always, guys, it's a great day for Florida Panthers hockey. Time to hunt.